What's going on, fishing buddies? Welcome back to the channel. Due to continuously strong winds, I have not been fishing lately. Strong winds coming out of the east, west, north, everywhere but south. I attempted to get out there in the kayak the other day, got skunked. Did another attempt in the surf, got skunked. So I've decided to use my time wisely during these strong wind days and prepare for my annual camping trip in St. George Island. Let's get it out there. This will be our fourth trip, kayak camping trip at St. George Island. We always go right when the time is changing and celebrate getting our daylight back. We stay 4 to 5 days. The last 2 years in a row, it's been over 20-mile-an-hour winds the whole time we've been out there on the island. And it's dreadful, y'all. We stick it out, we fish, but I mean, it is a pain in the butt to deal when you're in this open conditions with no cover, 20-mile-an-hour winds, trying to kayak fish. And we're not bringing a lot of supplies as far as food because we're doing catch, clean, and cooks. So to get out there in those conditions, in those winds, trying to catch fish to eat, it gets difficult, y'all. So fingers crossed, we're gonna have some better conditions this year. And I am bringing a different kayak this year. So I definitely wanted to get everything down, get everything lined up on the kayak, packed the way I'm gonna be able to get to the island. Because once we launch, we have about a mile to go. It's not a long distance, but when you're loaded down with like 4 days worth of camping supplies, it gets hairy. So I'm gonna get the kayak stripped down today, pack it as if I was leaving like tomorrow morning, get everything situated, get everything strapped in, so the day of the launch, I'm prepared. The very first year, I did not do that, and I got to launch and then started trying to figure out the puzzle, and I wasted a lot of time, guys. After that, I started preparing and packing before. So basically, I get to launch. I already know where everything's going. I can get everything loaded up within 20 minutes and I'm off. First, let's look at the kayak and the old kayak that I was taking and the differences. So the kayak I've been taking the last 3 years is the Old Town Sportsman 106. This is a 10-footer, 37 inches wide. What this Sportsman has that my new kayak doesn't is in-hole storage, which this is huge for kayak camping, guys, because I can pop this off and I can stick basically everything I need as far as like the actual camping equipment, meaning like my tent, my sleeping bag, all my utensils and things for cooking can all go in this hole here, strapped down, and it's out of the way. It also has a little bit of space here underneath the seat. I don't stick much in this, but I can get a few items down in there, again, out of the way from the actual surface of the kayak, because everything will be stacked up here in the back, stacked up in the front. I'm pedaling, so the more room, the better for me. And then the 106 has a pretty decent trunk space back here too, guys. I mean, this is a lot of space to pack things, stack things high, bungee cord everything down. And here's the 120 Salty. This is what I will be taking. Another thing I didn't mention is the Salty is set for offshore too. It's got this big kick up in the front to get through some waves. And I've been in some pretty hairy conditions out there in St. George Island with all those winds where I was greatly needing this. That little 10-foot Sportsman got a little sketchy out there a few times, had me nervous. So kind of preparing for that too, just in case there is winds, a lot of current, I'm prepared for it. So what I'm losing with the Salty is that in-hole storage. I mean, I have this bungee up top, a little kind of divot in here that I'm gonna stack things. Probably gonna have to pick up another dry bag. It does still have that little storage under the seat. Again, you can't fit much back there. And then the trunk space is a little bit smaller too than the Sportsman 106. So I'm gonna get everything down from the attic, all my camping gear, pull it out, and really try to put this puzzle together and see if it'll even work. Woo. All right, we've got to dig through all this holiday stuff to find the camping gear, which I believe is back there. All right, got all that stuff moved. I can probably eliminate some of this stuff without bringing it down. That's the old garage tent there. Definitely bringing that. This is an extra sleeping bag I have for my overnight kayak camping trips I run here in Perdido. But this is the bulk of the stuff here. So I'm definitely gonna get all that down. I believe this is my cooking supplies. Yeah, so we need that too. All right, let's get this stuff down. Getting too old for this. All right, guys, got everything out of that big yellow bag there. That's a big dry bag. So this was everything that was in it stored up in the attic. So basically I just have my miscellaneous bag here, some steaks, anything I need for cooking, lighter, blah, 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 right? Cutting board, couple sword knives, camp axe, flint. This is a little saw, like a limb saw. Then I have my sleeping bag. This is a blanket. My small little hiking tent, hammock straps. This is a mat that goes, like my sleeping mat that goes in my sleeping bag. I have my garage tent, so I'll set this up to keep supplies in, to keep it out of the elements from sand blowing on everything. Got a lot of camera equipment and stuff like that out there, guys, so I try to keep it protected. Just a tarp to lay down underneath my tent, and then my little stove. So I believe all this stuff will go back in this bag. I just got to pack it nicely. And then I'll take this entire bag and strap it probably to the front of the kayak. Most of this stuff was fitting inside the kayak on the 106. Again, I don't have that inside hole storage anymore, so I got to figure out a different method. Got it. All right, got all that packed in there. The only thing I couldn't get in there was my cutting board and my stove. So those should be pretty easy to shove somewhere, but I got everything else, the bulk of my camping gear, strapped right to the front here, and it's super secure, guys. That's not going anywhere. Waterproof with this dry bag. I believe that's where that's gonna ride. All right, at this point I have the back loaded up. I'll show you what I got here. Charcoal, this will be a full bag of charcoal, and I'll have it wrapped in like a big plastic bag for water protection. This is a backpack cooler. It's empty now, but I will shove as many waters as I can in here because I found this fit this really nicely right behind the seat. I have my Hammerhead cooler, which this is a nice expensive cooler, and this will hold ice for a long time. So I definitely want to use this on these longer trips. My cutting board, another case of water strapped up to the top, and I'll also use all these slots that you see on the sides to throw bottles of water also. The goal is to get everything out there in one trip and not have to come back to launch to pick up other things as days goes on. I have my camping, my stove, and all that equipment right back here in the back. I will need to add some propane to this too, so I'll have like 3 or 4 propane containers. Again, I'll shove them in the bag here. If needed, I can slide them in these slots. I still have a lot of slack on my bungee to strap things in. Obviously, I'll have the life vest on, and then all my tackle, everything I'm using as far as artificials and stuff like that will go in boxes and go underneath the seat. I'll have to strap on a small shovel somewhere on there for my waste. I want to leave piles everywhere on the sand out there, so it will be buried with some biodegradable wipes. And then inside the cooler, I have some meat vacuum sealed, some steaks, some chicken, things like that. Make it as small as possible, pack that in there. Whatever else I can fit in that cooler, pack that down with as much ice as possible. And that cooler will hold ice for days. Plus mid-March, the time that we're going, is still kind of cool. So a lot of things that I want to keep cold, like let's say bottles of water, I'll just throw them in my landing net, tie them off to a branch and throw them in the water, and it keeps them cold. But there's still a lot of little things that you don't think about until you're getting actually ready to leave. So I'll have clothes, probably 4 fishing rods, sand spike, camera equipment. There's a lot of little things to pile up right there at the end. They just kind of you gotta get them in where they fit in. And then the key to launch is to strap everything down to where if you do happen to flip, you're not gonna lose everything. I would probably need some help flipping my kayak back upright. And as long as I'm not in too deep of water, that can happen. But after launch, once we get in the middle of that body of water, it gets deep, y'all. And I believe it was last year that I got, and it was like super rough out there, and I just had to wait it out. I just basically sat in the truck, waited a few hours for a break in the wind, and then had everything packed up already, and then just hit it. Once you leave launch, and if you get a good steady motion going, you can make it across in probably about 45 minutes. And a group of items that I've been kind of narrowing down as the years go on is my clothes. I really don't go through a lot of clothes out there. You think you do, you bring so much, and really I'm wearing the same thing every day. Unless something like this gets super nasty, like with fish and fish blood or something like that, then I'll change it out. But really I can get by with like 3 changes of clothes. A pair of like basic swimming trunks to take my baths in. Don't want to be out there all naked. But other items that add up are like your cooking stuff, like your spices, your oils, your things like that. It's a bunch of little things, but it piles up. So those are the items I start shoving underneath the seats and things like that right before launch. And each year out there, guys, I get a little bit better, a little bit more familiar with the fishery. A lot of oyster beds around there, flounder, trout, reds. There's also opportunity to set rig fish right from camp for reds and trout. My first 2 years out there, I was catching trout from shore, set rig fishing using fish bites. I'm talking about like 19, 20-inch trout, guys. Super cool out there. Those oyster beds are a blast to target. Definitely a different feel than the surface here in Perdido with the oyster beds. You think you're getting bites, and it's really just your jig head like popping and getting hung up against those oyster beds. So a lot of false alarms. It's fun. Usually I go with like 3 or 4 guys. You know, my crew changes every year. So in the process of rounding those guys up this year, see who's gonna return, see who wants to go. But something I definitely look forward to all year. Again, coming out of these winter months where it's cold, it's getting dark at like 4 o'clock. The fishing is horrible. To be able to break in our daylight, get in our daylight back, you know, out there on the island. Temps always around 75 degrees. Gets cooler at night, but nothing dramatic to where I'm like freezing. Catch, clean, and cooks right on campsite. I can't wait. If you guys are new to the channel, go through my playlist. You'll see kayak camping, or it says like camping or something like that. I have about 8 videos out of us kayak camping St. George Island. And you can see the progression each year of like the kayaks, the gear, bringing more stuff, bringing less stuff, getting better and better at it each year, guys. I do offer kayak camping excursions with my guided services here in Perdido. So take a look at the videos if you're interested in doing something like that. I run like a 36-hour trip. It's the same ordeal as St. George Island, just here in Perdido and a lot shorter. You can find all the details and pricing for that under PERDIDOBLANE.com. Now, I'm gonna prepare for some pier fishing tomorrow. Till next time, fishing buddies.